He held out his hand, as if offering a simple human gesture. She stepped back as if the air itself had betrayed her, an involuntary recoil, a tiny horror that turned into a performance. Cameras pivoted, phones rose like an invocation. The lobby lights caught on her pearls and on the smear of lipstick she suddenly worried about. For a heartbeat, the room froze on a single image, a black man extending trust, a white CEO turning it away. Victoria Hale moved through the VIP entrance of the Peninsula atrium like someone accustomed to parting seas. Her heels clicked with a practiced cadence. A PR handler hovered to her left. A security detail fell into a precise, almost choreographed formation. The silk of her suit was immaculate. The shield of her confidence seemed unassailable. Darius Knight stayed composed in his navy overcoat. He smiled, a measured, unshowy smile, and reached out. The reaction was louder than the act, a ripple of murmurs. One of the board members hiding near the plants cleared his throat and pretended not to record. Someone else, closer to the chandelier, already had a camera in hand. Victoria's refusal was not a small personal spasm, it was a public decision. Her hand didn't just withdraw, it declared who belonged in the room and who did not. One of her associates laughed, a brittle sound. This is awkward. Security moved like a single animal at a signal. A guard stepped forward, not to mend the social breach, but to enforce it. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The phrasing was gentle and final. Darius's eyes flicked once toward the lobby crowd, clustered executives, influencers, and the barista who had been swept into the spectacle, and then down at the guard's hand. He did not argue. He gathered himself with the same slow steadiness that had defined his handshake. He turned as if disappointed, not enraged. He left under the polite firmness of the security escort, the door closing on the tiny theater of exclusion. Phones hummed. Someone uploaded the clip before Darius's cab had even pulled away. If you want more stories about power and consequence, subscribe. She thought the moment was contained. A singular humiliation engineered to reassert rank. She thought the cameras would be curiosities and the clip a ripple. She did not know how economy rearranges itself overnight. By morning, Silverstone Dynamics was brittle. Emails multiplied like frost. The corporate comms team, usually a confident, rehearsed unit, sent draft statements that read like bandages. The board chair called an emergency meeting with the clipped language of damage control. Investors pinged their legal contacts. The CEO's assistant texted 3 variations of reassurance and then deleted them all. On the oak conference table, the board chair slid a document across the polished surface with a hand that no longer trembled for protocol, only for practicality. The paper bore a seal and a signature line, but what mattered was the summary at the top. Knight Capital Group held backstop rights to a tranche of shares converted to voting stock as of midnight. Controlling interest, effective immediately. Victoria's smile, so competent the day before, thinned into something brittle. Her hands went to her lap as if to steady herself, and failed. The room, which had watched her orchestrate receptions and cut ribbons, watched her look at the page and understand. In the slow, catastrophic way people understand bad weather that becomes a storm. "Darius Knight is our largest investor," the chair said quietly. "He has voting control now." She made a small, strangled sound that might have been a laugh. "There must be some mistake," she said. The words were smaller than the room needed. The chair's reply was a kind of corporate mercy. "No mistake, Victoria." Darius arrived without fanfare. He moved through the corridor with the calm of someone who had already reconciled himself to the consequences of the morning. No entourage, no flourish. Just the quiet registry of an investor who had used leverage, not spectacle. He set his phone on the table, face up, like a man presenting evidence to a jury. Around him, people cleared their throats and pretended the device was only a screen. He tapped play. The lobby unspooled on the speakers with relentless clarity. The outstretched hand, the retreat, the security's practiced politeness, the guard's posture like a sentence. Silence fell like a weight. The people who had watched the humiliation as entertainment now had to watch it as fact. The optics were no longer a way to make a scene, they were a ledger entry. Victoria's face drained. Where seconds earlier she'd catalogued the room for allies, now she searched faces for rescue and saw instead neutrality and calculation. One director hovered with their arms crossed. The PR lead muttered apologies and counted the cost. A junior associate, a woman who had been in the back that afternoon, stared at the screen, her expression saying what the tape did not. "We saw you." When the video stopped, Darius did not speak with heat. He spoke like someone closing a case file. "I invest in teams that respect people," he said. His voice was flat, precise, the voice of an executive issuing a policy. "I cannot invest in a company whose leader models exclusion." Victoria's plea came out less like a rehearsed defense and more like disbelief. "Please," she said, rawer than she'd allowed herself to be in public. "You don't understand. This is a misunderstanding. I didn't mean I can make this right." "You humiliated one of our partners," a board member said, "in public." The simplicity of the statement carried the force of accumulated consequences. They were not inventing new harms. They were cataloguing the one before them. Darius's eyes found Victoria's. He could have chosen theatrical lines, could have demanded apologies on film, could have wielded the clip like a club. He chose steadiness. "Leadership is not what you command," he said. "It's what you protect. If someone at the top devalues others, the company pays for it. Employees, clients, reputation. I stand against that." He turned to the board. "I recommend we terminate her employment, effective immediately." The sentence landed. Some board members shifted. Others met his gaze and nodded, not with glee, but with a pragmatic calculation about risk and duty. The vote happened in the formal language of corporate governance. A majority recorded, a new reality enacted. Victoria grabbed for anything that could anchor her. "Please," she said again, "my team, my work, the investors." "You chose how to behave," Darius replied. His words were neither cruel nor vindictive. They were the ledger of consequence. "You made that choice in full view." Security, those same guards whose posture had once been her instrument, stood up with the same polite efficiency to escort Victoria out. There was no mocking flourish in their movement. There was no triumphant scorn on Darius's face. The procedure had the whiteness of formality. A letter signed, a badge returned, a door opened. She left under the same executive discretion she'd once commanded. In the aftermath, Darius addressed the board with a short plan: restructure the leadership, institute bias training that was more than performative, appoint an oversight committee with independent members. It was administration, not spectacle. He spoke about stewardship. He spoke about fiduciary duty and about the unambiguous cost of excluding talent. The language was businesslike, and beneath the sentences lay a moral claim. Companies are communities. Communities fail when leaders pretend hierarchy is an answer to insecurity. He did not humiliate her. He corrected the institution. He made his point without making the moment about his own vengeance. When he left the room, people noticed that he walked out as smoothly as he'd walked in. The cameras, which had once been instruments of exposure, recorded a different closure. A CEO removed, not by mob, but by ownership. The clip that circulated later balanced two images: the handshake refused and the phone on the table, the room silent as the video made accountability unavoidable. Weeks later, the lobby where the refusal had been filmed still hummed with business as usual. People met hands without theatre now, some with less assumption, some with the smaller humility that comes from watching power redistributed. Silverstone Dynamics announced new hiring protocols and a public statement about leadership standards. It was not a perfect fix. No single firing unmade the damage of a culture that had tolerated such gestures. But the institution had a new shape. The final image is a return to the hand. Two hands extended across a conference table somewhere else, meeting in a careful, steady clasp. Not performative, not a score settling, a transaction of trust. Someone who had been excluded now had a say in who stayed, and that shift changed more than a job title. It altered the calculus of what behavior would be permitted under the roof of corporate power. Power, Darius's brief intervention suggested, is not only who you usher into the room, it is who can close the door when a leader forgets that dignity is non-negotiable. Which moment shocked you more, the public refusal in the lobby or the boardroom reversal the next day? Comment below and share this story with someone who needs to see how consequence can follow spectacle.